I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I know. But David Arquette went on record during the pandemic and said it was his fault. He suggested the Betty Page bangs. I of course I hate it, but I like it in terms of costume design that when a character can have a very identifiable look, uh, maybe even like in a TV show per season, in a movie franchise per movie, where you see just the costume, just the hair, and you're like, I know exactly what that's from.
Yeah.
I like it from that where it's really identifiable.
This was definitely the movie that stood out for its costume, hair, and makeup design, because out of all 5, this was the worst one. Like everyone suffered here. Everyone. No one got off easy with good hair, a good wardrobe. Everyone like lined up and said, yeah, that's about right. And then they're like, let's just do it. Let's just get this
Hollywood LA types.
Yes.
Who knows what they wear?
Yeah. I do like the concept of the hair as a character design element, because it's very angular and extreme, which is all of Gale Weathers' outfits. So it's kind of fitting, even if it's kind of horrid to look at on most occasions.
So I wanted to amend my earlier statement of, do you think Jenny McCarthy's character was a Casey Becker, a Tatum, or Cotton Weary's girlfriend? But the way that she died, kind of slumped over the office door, was very reminiscent of Tatum being slumped over in the doggy door.
And I think they said her name was Candy at one point, so I don't know if she's supposed to be a different character altogether.
This one was a lot of like amalgamations of characters, with Tyson being Randy-esque but not Randy, which I think goes back to the Evil Dead satirical comedy nature of Stab 3.
Yeah. I like that take.
So we did talk about how this movie didn't do super, super well at the box office because, as Jay said, unfortunately, Columbine had happened earlier. Now, even though it wasn't well received, at the time, the film broke a record for the amount of screens it was showing on its opening weekend, which was 3,467 screens for its opening weekend. For the year 2000, pretty fucking rad, man. That's really cool. I mean, one of my all-time favorite pastimes, and was so hard for me during the pandemic. I love movies. My favorite thing in the world is just going to the movies. Doesn't matter what we're seeing. It doesn't matter if there's a shit ton of people in the room. It doesn't matter if there's no one in the room. I love being overwhelmed by, and Jay and I have talked about this before, I loved being overwhelmed by art. So if it's film, if it's music, what have you, if it's at the museum, I want to do it right. And I always feel like if you see it the way it's meant to be seen, you can appreciate it. And I feel like movies should always be seen on the big screen the first time you see it.
No, I get that. And definitely in the last few years, even before the pandemic, we were doing more on demand, or, I'm guilty of it, watching things on your phone when it's convenient. And and then with pandemic, and then you watch it at home on your couch with a million distractions, the dog's barking, the kids needing something, hold on, let me get another cup of coffee or whatever. But then, so when the movies start opening up and like you got the big blockbusters back, totally makes sense with what you're saying. With it, just the experience is different.
Yeah. Because I mean, come on now. Would you appreciate seeing Avengers Endgame more on the big screen or at home? A movie of that size should never be seen for the first time on your home screen. Never. That is a movie that should just reoccur once a year in a theater. So if you haven't seen it, you can go enjoy something so massive. Sometimes it's just too massive. I love being able to go into a theater and I have to turn off my phone. I can't talk to the person next to me. You just have to sit there and just be in awe, whether it's good or bad. You just sit there and you're just in awe of it. And I think that's so cool. That's why going to the movies is one of my favorite like experience, because you experience it. You know what I mean?
You ever walked out of a movie?
No, not a single one. I've seen some shit too, but no, I've never walked out of a movie. Did I walk? Nope.
I've fallen asleep a couple times.
Oh yeah,
I've never fallen asleep.
for sure.
I have never once fallen asleep in a movie. My partner can't say that, but I have never once fallen asleep in a movie. I say that as a little like poke to him. I had taken him to see The Creature from the Black Lagoon one October. It was unfair. He had worked like a 10-hour day, and then I made him go sit in a movie theater. Of course, you know, he was tired and he fell asleep, but I was so mad. I was like, this is one of the greatest movies in history. Why aren't you watching this? Have either of you ever walked out of a movie?
No, I don't think I have.
No, and it's difficult for me to even turn a movie off after I've turned it on. Like, I've gone through the struggle of selecting my film. I'm gonna write it out in most cases. The only movie that I've like angrily shut off is I think Broken Arrow, the John Travolta movie. Yeah. I remember being stoked because everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's really good." No, fucking piece of shit. Turn it off. Hated every second of it.
But it's Christian Slater, right? Isn't he in that too?
I think so. I don't know. I didn't watch it, so
I remember a movie that I didn't like walk out of, but I left in the last like 10-15 minutes of it. Like, I knew it was coming to an end. Even though I had never seen it before, I knew I had read the books to it. So I knew that it was coming to an end. But I was so angry at the movie that I was like, I already know what happens. And like asked my stepdad and my brother if we could leave.
Wow.
Yeah. Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. I was so pissed off. And I was like 12.
That leads me on another tangent about how I think Jim Carrey's super overrated.
Nope, we're not going to have this fight. This was something that should have been brought up off air first. We're not, sir. You swallow your words. Write me out.
No.
I admire Jim Carrey the right amount, like just in like this, like in enough dosage. He has like what words am I thinking of? Like a prescribed amount, and anything more than that, it's like, oh, this is too much. But
Sure.
so someone online, we recently saw The Killer Call Sydney.
Look at Alina bring us back. Jay and I are fighting.
Yeah.
Well,
And Alina's like, you know what? Let's podcast, you guys. Let's do your podcast. Let's bring this back.
I think we're all just like, I don't know what to talk about with Scream 3. So, but the Killer Called Sydney on her home line, she thought it was the work line and she answered it, her alter ego, Laura, the crisis counselor. Someone online conjectured that that's a plot hole because that's the killer wanted, he killed Cotton Weary to get Sydney's number and didn't get Sydney's number. At one point, Dewey discloses the killer broke into the Woodsboro Police Department to get Sydney's number and didn't get Sydney's number that way. So how could the killer get Sydney's number? Why did they kill Cotton Weary? I almost called him Cotton Levy because I'm like, those look like insults. I don't know. It doesn't bother me that they eventually got her number, maybe from Dewey being around set, maybe from Gail.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that it could have happened. Like I said, I think there's a lot of dots in this movie that don't get connected because half the time the people aren't looking at the same picture. You know what I mean? And there's a part of me that thinks that Wes Craven, and again, this is kind of like a head canon. So he kind of just went off the rails and was like, you know what, if we're not going to make a Scream movie, let's make a fucking, I don't know what, but like essentially a big fuck you to everyone. And so let's make it ridiculous and over the top, and let's just do what we have to do to get through this, to finish it out contractually. But it's going to be a fuck you to everyone. And there are tones of shitty Hollywood execs in this movie. And that's part of the plot with Maureen Prescott's character. And, 10, 15 years later, it came out that Harvey Weinstein, huge piece of shit. And so potentially it's a statement on that. And like, hey, someone saying, yes, we know this is happening. Yeah. So it's almost Wes Craven being like, fuck you, but also in like a petty bitch kind of way.
Which we've discovered he can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to him being like, hey, I'm Wes Craven, you're going to do what I ask. The scenes that take place in the recreation of Sydney's home from the first movie, they weren't in any of the scripts that were like put into production. He had it built because he wanted to do that and wanted to go back to that. So it was added way after the fact. And it was just Wes Craven saying, do it because I'm Wes Craven.
I heard he even paid to get those sets built.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this movie is so patchy.
That, we're in the scene. They're in Tom Prince's house, I think. They're in the rap party. Jennifer's house. Because the production of Stab 3 has been halted with all the murders. The power's out. They're starting using fax machine faxes,
which is the most early 2000s thing you could possibly have happen.
This, I think, is there's a couple places where, because they didn't edit out the thread of the second killer, I would like to think of that was written as the second killer is an accomplice. Maybe not a full-on, I'm going to murder people, maybe not fully understanding what they were signing up to be, like Angelina being an accomplice. I like that idea. I mean, because the text on screen doesn't refute it, but that's the alternative to say it's poorly edited.
The other issue with there only being one killer is that there's a lot of teleportation that goes on, where the killer is in one area and then in the very next scene with entirely different characters very far away in costume. You know what I mean?
Ooh, but I'm going to test you on that. I'm going to challenge you because we got that in the second one as well. So when the car crash happened.
But we had two killers.
Right. But think about the car crash. Think about that scene with when they crashed the car, when Sydney and Hallie were in the back and they had to climb out over him. They weren't from that car for more than 30 seconds. And somehow, some way, that killer had to get out of the car and go behind all of that construction that was right there and come around on that closed sidewalk that wasn't there and had to come around and grab Hallie. Transportation. Not like there would have been no way. Like if you're looking at that.
That's slightly less problematic. I'm not saying it's not problematic, but slightly less so than across town in this movie.
In LA, you know what I mean? Where things are like an hour away from each other.
Yeah, like anytime you get on the highway, you're just like, all right, well, let's prepare for 3 hours.
Yeah, let's do our taxes while we're sitting here. But I mean, like I said, it's a larger problem in this movie than I think it is in Scream 2. Especially because there are multiple instances where the killer catches a bullet and it's
bulletproof vest.
Yeah. They go to that a couple of times and it's almost too much.
But I think that's the joke of it, is that it is too much. Like it is too much. Is like that repeat of it. I feel like it fit in very well. Because every time I saw it, it was funny. And every time I saw it, it was like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. And like, I think by the last one, I was like, oh, bulletproof vest. Like I called it immediately because I was expecting it at that point. So yeah, no, I found that very funny. And I do like that they do, again, do the whole play on Hollywood where they're like, it's a stage name and they make fun of Parker Posey's character for changing her name as well. So, because they're having trouble trying to figure out like who Maureen Prescott was in this like 3-year span from when she left Woodsboro to when she came back. So, also we get the phenomenal Carrie Fisher in this for no reason at all. And I think,